YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger episode 34. So this was basically our Halloween episode, but also an important episode development happened within it. And this was kind of more your par for the course Zenkaiger episode. Like I talked about, I think it was last week or the week before, I think it was the filler episode where it was one of the first ones in Zenkaiger to kind of be useless, where they didn't really have anything happening within it. Because, you know, Zenkaiger is not like the best show, but for the most part, every time it has a filler episode, even when it's like mostly filler, they'll have a little nugget of something happening. And last week was one of the first times where you could just completely skip the episode and nothing of value would have been missed. And this episode was kind of much more in line with what we're used to, where it's a filler episode 90% of the time, but you have one really important nugget of information. The main premise about the Halloween episode was around this pumpkin monster. Like, everyone's celebrating Halloween and they realize something's amiss and they're like, okay, this is obviously from a monster. They fight the pumpkin monster and he loses his, like, pumpkin head thing, which gives him his powers, which sets up the premise for the episode, which is everybody trying to find the pumpkin head first. So, you know, the Rangers are trying to find it, and then Hakaiser's trying to find it, and then Stacy wants to find it before Hakaiser, and that sets up Stacy's little arc in this episode about his interactions with Hakaiser and wanting to get it before him to prove himself, and him, like, being not confused, but being interested in Hakaiser's, like, let's work together and do our best, I'm Kaito's dad, clearly, attitude, and basically sets up, I mean, it's like, crap or get off the pot, Stacy. I'm tired of Stacy's same... I feel like we have the same plot for Stacy every episode. He walks around and he's thinking the same things with just slightly different, like, altered dialogue. And that's what happens, is he's trying to do this thing, and Kaito runs into him and he's like, hey, should we have, like, the same conversation we have every episode? Like, I like Stacy. I'm a sucker for a good redemption arc. I'm gonna have some very mixed thoughts on his story by the end of the series, but I just feel like we're doing the same thing every episode. Basically, that's what's happening. Everyone's trying to get this pumpkin. It has some funny parts in it. The funniest part being, I think, when they recruit Hakaiser to it and they're like, this is a sketch of what we're looking for. And it's just a little sketch of a pumpkin, which I found to be funny. Ultimately, Hakaiser does find it for him first, but then after it doesn't work out, Stacy's is used, and he's like, well, it was just a coincidence, I was looking for it, or whatever. And when they destroy him, we get the big, unique mecha battle, and the funny parts in that were when Zenkaijo has to put on a sheet to protect himself, and then also they're trying to say Happy Halloween, and I think it's Hakaiser that almost says Happy Birthday when they first transform into the mecha. Happy birthday! Obviously an O's reference! Just kidding, but it makes me think about it. And the main thing, though, that's important that's happening is while they're fighting the pumpkin monster of the week, the other four Rangers are fighting on the ground with Hakaiser. And you know, Hakaiser starts doing that thing where he's like, oh, I'm running out of battery. And Vroon's like, not this time, and he uses the Bokenger gear, which it was funny because I think he said something like, nothing new for me, since he's based off of Bokenger, but they cement Hakaiser in place before he can port away. And when he runs out his battery, his mask comes off, and he's in stasis, and they're like, oh my god, could it really be him? And I kind of like the way they did this, because they didn't show you who it was at first, it just showed you the back of his head, and the Rangers kind of reacting to it. But then later, when they're kind of at the end of the episode celebration for Halloween, the four of them are discussing it, and then they realize, they say, could it really be him? And then they show the other perspective of, yeah, it's his dad, and they look at the picture like, yeah, look at those big ears, it's clearly Kai. We don't even need a DNA test. Those ears are basically a live 23andMe. And that's when they realize, I just kind of like the way they did it, because at first I'm like, oh no, they're going to stretch it out, and they're not going to show it till next episode or something. But I just kind of like the way, actually, they didn't show it at first, and then they kind of had the four of them discussing it, and then they ended it on this cliffhanger of it being his dad. I have, like, mixed thoughts on it being his dad. It just seems kind of weird. I don't know. I'm going to see how it plays out. So many people guessed it ahead of time. It was, like, the most predictable thing, but it was still a nice note to leave the episode off on. We are going to have a 2-week vacation because they're doing golf or something. Immediately thinking about, what was that show? Tokusatsu Gagaga. Your show gets preempted by golf for 2 weeks, but honestly, I'm kind of excited for a little bit of a break. Like, I like Zenkaiger fine, but it's not exactly a show I'm like, oh my god, I've got to see it every week, and I'm kind of looking forward to take a break. And it can be kind of frustrating that it ends on kind of a cliffhanger before a break, but I think it's a good setup to entice people to look forward to it when it comes back in 2 weeks. At least it's not a Morgan backstory episode right after Glenn rolls under the dumpster, but overall, I thought this was much more of a solid, of like par for the course Zenkaiger episode. I would give it a 3 out of 5. What did you guys think of this Halloween episode? What did you think of the official reveal that Hakaiser is Kaito's dad? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can subscribe videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.